family. My father was in the army, and his father was also in the army. And we have lived a military life all our lives. And the second major factor of motivation was all these officers who were basically posted to Belgaum military station and whom I saw with my dad also. They always had this bike called the YesD. I have been awarded 6 times, and the first award that I had was a Sena Medal, Gallantry, for anti-terrorism operations in Jammu and Kashmir.
विथ ऑल ड्यू रिस्पेक्ट, आप जितना भी बंदूक लेके जाओ, ठीक मोमेंट में गोली भी नहीं चलेगी आप अगर उसका विल पावर नहीं होगा ना तो
And I am a very proud armored officer, that is a cavalry officer, and we wear our entire uniform with a lot of pride. Colonel Rajan Bakshi only told me one thing: son, I want to win this, and I don't care how. In India today, we are finding so much of ideological differences. And here we talk about Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Sikh, and we're fighting each other on the basis of religion. From my side, I can only say one thing: the troops that are standing there at the borders, they don't follow any religion except the religion of nationalism.
how do you see the difference in the Indian army in terms of using technology, AI, drones and all that, right?
Instead, क्या भारत ने ऑफ सिंदूर में पाकिस्तान का टेररिज्म कैपेबिलिटी खत्म किया? The only place where we right now are stronger to them is the Indian Navy. You make any, but you made a computer, somebody made a virus. Well, you make a robotic soldier, somebody will make an anti-robotic soldier to dismember.
So, Kargil to Operation Sindoor.
And today, you don't need weapon systems like robots or unmanned vehicles or autonomous weapon systems. All you need is a laptop, and you need to be a good hacker.
I don't know. So, do you think India, if such a war starts tomorrow, India is ready, or technologically at least, because technology is going to play a major factor in the future warfare, right?
Leadership in the army. Every army officer that is inducted into the Indian Army as an officer has leadership qualities. That's why he's there. The Indian Army is the only army where the officer has to go into the attack first, followed by his jawan. Because the jawans are constantly watching what the officer is doing and thereby following him. And so that commanding officers, and I told them, take all your vehicles and your men and get into these places that were designed and rescue as many people as possible.
However much respect we give you, it is always less. I mean,
Enforcement for generals now are there day and night without sleep, without eating anything. I'm sorry, generals don't need to go, but they are there. They're doing so well.
I personally at least look up to the army for one most important thing in my life, which is the leadership value that you guys bring in.
भाई देखो यार, जहाँ भी इंडिया कहीं फंसता है, सिर्फ फौज आती है. My last word to everybody who is watching this is: be proud of your country. Don't let another Op Sindhu narrative be lost.
Hello everybody, this is Sudeep here. Welcome back to my channel once again. In today's podcast, I had the good fortune to talk to retired Brigadier Neil Johnson from the Indian Armed Forces. In this podcast, I had the opportunity to talk to him and pick his brain on various topics like from Kargil to Operation Sindoor to the future of warfare to autonomous weapon systems to the leadership in the Indian Army. I enjoyed doing this discussion with him, and I do hope that you will also enjoy watching this podcast. But before we get started, I have one request for you, and that is to please like, share, and subscribe to my channel so that I get the motivation to bring similar videos for you in future. So having said that, enjoy the show. So today we have with us Neil Johnson. He's a retired brigadier from our very own Indian Army, and I'm very proud and honored to have him in my show. So I'll hand over the first thing to him by asking him a question about his childhood and his journey and how he joined the Indian Army. Is there a kind of a family history that he's linked to Indian Army, and then about his Sena medal and all those stuff. So actually just a little bit of background about himself so that our viewers come to know who he is and from where he is coming. So over to you, sir.
First of all, Sudeep, thank you for having me over. And I think the question that you asked me as to my childhood, I come from a military family. My father was in the army, and his father was also in the army. And we have lived a military life all our lives. And through this, I always was motivated right from the beginning. और पहले से मैं बिल्कुल कायम कर चुका था कि मैंने फौज ज्वाइन करनी है. So I said that I'm going to join the army. I'm going to follow in the footsteps of my dad, become an officer of the Indian Army. And what motivated me the most is, when I was a small kid, I'm from a small town called Belgaum. That's in Karnataka. And there the commando school is very prominent. And all the Indian military commandos are trained there. And these commandos used to go in the buses and they used to have this long distance running with all the packs and all that. And in school, we used to stand in attention while standing for a bus and salute them and say, Jai Hind. And even when they were absolutely tired and absolutely falling down, they used to still stand and say Jai Hind and smile at us and still run ahead. And that motivation was complete. The second major factor of motivation was all these officers who were basically posted to Belgaum military station and whom I saw with my dad also. They always had this bike called the Yezdi. I hope you understand what a Yezdi bike is. At that time, the Yezdi was the most. It used to make a lot of noise. It was a very thin bike, but it was a signature style of most military officers. So everybody wanted to own that ESD, and that was the second motivational factor. And the third motivational factor is all military officers that we came across had beautiful wives. And I said, जिंदगी में अगर है एक गाड़ी चाहिए एक नौकरी चाहिए और एक बीवी चाहिए ऐसे चलो इसी मोटिवेशन में हम फौज ज्वाइन कर देते हैं. माय डैड वाज ऑलवेज वेरी क्लियर. वी हैड थ्री चिल्ड्रन, my elder sister, and my younger brother along with me. And he was very clear that one of us is going to join the military. And that time the women were not being inculcated into the army. So he said, uh, because I was very sporty, because I was into all kinds of outdoors, he said this guy will be the best, and that's how I got into the army. And I joined the Indian Military Academy. I got commissioned from there in June 1992, and then was posted to as a second lieutenant. That was a rank that existed then. It is no longer a rank which is continued with in the Indian Army. And as a second lieutenant, I was posted to 69 Armored Regiment, one of the very fine armored regiments which has a history that is impeccable. They fought the 1970 war of India-Bangladesh, and they were a prime mover in carrying out huge tank movements in the riverine terrain of Bangladesh. And they had the battle on Bogra and the theatre on East Pakistan. They were awarded that. And so I was very proud to join 69 Armored Regiment. And I continued with 69 Armored Regiment. I had major tenures everywhere. I served in every part of the country. And I hold a lot of firsts to my career. I have been awarded 6 times. And the first award that I had was a Sena Medal, Gallantry, for anti-terrorism operations in Jammu and Kashmir. And later after that, I was awarded 5 other awards for distinguished service wherever I was posted for doing my whatever work outstandingly and more than what I was supposed to, I guess, and that's why I was awarded. So I was privileged to have the 6 awards. I also have been instructor in 5 army's major premier schools of instruction. So I've been an instructor there. Then I have also commanded the Indian Nuclear Brigade, and that too during one of its most critical times when Balakot was in existence. And I might be the only nuclear brigade commander in India who actually deployed his. I might be the only nuclear brigade commander who was, quite quite operationally involved during the Balakot, during the incident of Balakot. So the fact of the matter is that I always wanted to join the army. I joined the army and I finished 33 years of service in the army, and I did not retire. I chose to re-attire, leave the army and join the corporate world to explore and expose myself to things that can happen. And that decision also that I took was along with my family, and I realized it would be fruitful for me, and that's how today I'm working in the corporate world for the Adani Group in Mumbai.
Thank you for sharing all this information. So, question is, the way you got motivated by seeing those commandos, did you fulfill that dream at any point of time? Did you try and become a commando at any point of time, or did you get into training commandos or something like that?
No, you see, I was from the Armored Corps, and the commando training is normally at that time also it was all arms, but mostly for the infantry officers. And of course, you have two kinds of commandos. You have the infantry officers that do the normal commando course, and then you have the para commandos and the special forces. So they have a different kind of training, and I didn't undergo that training. Neither did I train them because that training was part of the infantry. It was not for me. While I did the basic courses that were involved in training on fighting with tanks on the borders, and basically that was what my forte was. And I am a very proud armored officer, that is a cavalry officer, and we wear our entire uniform with a lot of pride.
Okay, thank you. So, I mean, obviously, about one dream I asked. The rest of the two is one is the Yaddi bike. Obviously, you got one. I can say from your face, and the third one was a beautiful wife, and I'm sure she would be very beautiful. So, congratulations on.
So the fact is that I never bought an ESD. I always had a bullet with me, and today
Okay,
ride a Harley Davidson.
okay.
But the fact of the matter is, yes, I got one of the most prettiest women as my bride, and I can actually say that I married one of the most beautiful women uh, that exists in the Indian Army.
Good to know that, sir. Okay, sir, moving on with the next question. You have commanded troops and you have managed high value assets and you have handled maybe critical situations, crisis moments, right? So I wanted to know few of your critical moments that you faced in the army that defined you as a person, right? Changed your actually perspective towards life एंड ऑल दोज काइंड्स ऑफ थिंग्स होता है ना वो एक मोमेंट आ जाता है जहां पे आपका पूरा जिंदगी चेंज हो जाता है ऐसा कुछ आपके साथ हुआ है तो एक दो किस्सा सर आप अगर बता सकते हैं
देखो फौज में तो बहुत कहानियां हैं जो होती हैं और ये मेरे साथ नहीं बहुत सारे ऑप्शनों के साथ होती हैं एंड आई कीप टेलिंग पीपल इट इज ऑल अबाउट अपॉर्चुनिटीज एंड टेकिंग दोज अपॉर्चुनिटीज इन टाइम you know we might say gallantry we might say victory we might say all these things but at the end of the day it is opportunities that are grabbed in situations that come in front of you and if you do not grab that opportunity you lose that point you lose that time you lose the situation so in that case, there are many incidents that have taken place in my life. But the first incident that molded my entire career is when I was serving under a CO, commanding officer called Rajan Bakshi, Colonel Rajan Bakshi. Later, he went on to become General Rajan Bakshi and one of the army commanders of Central Command also. So he as a CO came from a very very valiant unit called the 17 Pune Horse, and he was posted to 69 Armored Regiment to command it. तो उसको बोला गया तुम इस रेजिमेंट को कमांड करोगे so when he came to the regiment naturally a person has come from outside to command a unit which is fresh and new and he started to get into policies and was forced into getting into an exercise right in the beginning और हम फायरिंग के लिए चले गए और उस फायरिंग में 70 पुणे हॉर्स जो रेजिमेंट थी वो भी थी और हम भी थे और एक जनरल साहब थे जो बहुत कठोर थे ही वाज वेरी वेरी स्ट्रिक्ट एंड ही सेड आई वांट टू सी अ कंपटीशन ऑन फायरिंग ऑल द रेजिमेंट्स एज टू हू फायर्स द बेस्ट तो 70 पुणे हॉर्स जो रेजिमेंट थी वो काफी तगड़े यूनिट है और tank firing is not easy. You see, you have to fire while on the move. You have to fire in dust. You have to fire with all kinds of gunners who might be well trained, not very well trained. So there are a lot of intangibles that exist. And in that 17 Pune horse did excellently. They did an excellent job. And when it came to us, somehow, Khuda na khasta, we didn't do such a good job. We were far behind 17 Pune horse. And somewhere down the line, the general felt disappointed. And when he felt disappointed, he looked at our CEO Rajan Bakshi. He says, "You need to do something about this unit and need to get it war fighting fit because I want them to be prepared for war." And Colonel Rajan Bakshi at that time, he was quite low in his morale because of what had happened. And the next professional competition or the professional training was a reconnaissance troop competition. That's the recce troop competition we call it. And he said, uh, "This competition I have to win." And there are 17 teams that are going to take part in this competition, and I need to win. And so he said, "Who's the officer we should put on it?" And everybody unanimously said, "Neil John." So Though I was not the junior most, normally the junior most officer gets into the recce troop. I was chosen to go into the recce troop competition. Colonel Rajan Bakshi only told me one thing: son, I want to win this, and I don't care how. You are left by your own for 3 months. Nobody's going to bother you. Nobody's going to check on you. Nobody's going to do anything. We are going to give you what you need. We are going to give you the troops that you select. But you need to promise me at the end of the day that you'll win this competition. And we went ahead and we won it. And we won it in such style that Colonel Rajan Bakshi later, I think this changed his career more than mine. And later he went on to become a general. While it changed my perception of life, because this was the first time in my entire military career as a young captain where a colonel gave his entire responsibility without any checks and balances and put me in order and told me, take ownership and deliver. And I delivered. And from that day on, I not only became a better human being, and I became an officer of reckoning. Those 21 boys who trained with me, 27 actually, boys who trained with me till today, two of them have died due to certain reasons. But till today, all these boys are in touch with me. It has been almost 30 years and above. And they still call me once in a fortnight and we talk. So that is the bond that we developed. And Colonel Rajan Bakshi went on to be a general. And till today, I can tell you that between him and General Langar, I have never seen better steers. So it all depends upon how much responsibility the commanding officer gives. So that was one incident. The second incident was when I was in the Rashtra Rifles. You know, when I was in the Rashtra Rifles, joined a counter-terrorism operations. I was in a battalion called One Rashtra Rifle Mahal. My CEO was a very valiant guy, very strong guy, very powerful guy called Colonel V.K. Patil. He was from the Gurkhas. And that man knew how to fight the anti-terrorism battle. And I was one of his favorites. So, because I was never scared, मैं किसी से डरता नहीं था क्योंकि मैं एक ही चीज से डरता हूँ आज तक जिंदगी में वो है भगवान से एंड मैं किसी और से डरता नहीं हूँ आई हैव नेवर गॉट स्कैर्ड ऑफ एनीथिंग इन लाइफ एक्सेप्ट गॉड द फैक्ट इज that there a lot of action took place in which I was involved. And within that action, I've narrated this action in an earlier podcast also. But one of the action which I normally changed my entire life was where, sometimes as a soldier, you trust your training. But more than the training, you have to trust the divine around you, the aura around you, the powers that are within you and around you. I'll tell you of an operation that happened. We killed three militants, three terrorists were killed. And after killing these three terrorists, as a norm, we go and check the terrorists for certain amount of documents, identity, and all those things. And when one of two terrorists had fallen and one terrorist had fallen outside the building, so we went to check the documents. We got some documents out of his pocket, and I was standing about 10 to 12 feet away. And when I was checking the documents, suddenly everybody started running helter skelter. I realized, before I could realize something had happened, there was a huge blast. There was a huge blast. And this terrorist who was lying just about 10 feet away from me, what he had done was he had held a grenade in his hand and he had removed the pin. So when we turned his body to check his documents, that grenade got released because he was already dead. And when the grenade got released, it was a Chinese made grenade and it blasted. But you see the divine around you. I didn't get a single sharpnel that hit me. Not a single sharpnel. I should have been dead, but it didn't happen. Because there was somebody who was a released militant who was working with us. He was trying to save himself. And while trying to save himself, he ran in front of me. And when the blast took place, the entire shrapnel that came hit him and it protected me. So you see, this was one incident that made me realize कि भैया डरना नहीं है ठीक है भगवान तुम्हारे साथ है चलते रहो ठोकते रहो और खुश रहो and that is what worked for me and there are many incidents like this that have happened and I've also written a book on it which I need to publish very soon. I'm waiting for the right publisher. Hopefully when it happens I will surely publish.
Sir, you can get in touch with me after this call. I will introduce you to one agent. I don't know if they will accept it, but I have also recently written a book, and I have got a contract through this agent. It's a Singapore-based agent. So if you want, I can introduce you to them, and you can talk to them and figure out if it works out for you. So
Surely, surely.
okay. So back to our conversation. So these kinds of moments actually make us realize that there are bigger powers than us around, who actually we cannot even lift our finger without them willing us to do something, right? That is what my realization is actually, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
आप with all due respect, आप जितना भी बंदूक लेके जाओ, ठीक मोमेंट में गोली भी नहीं चलेगी आप अगर उसका विल पावर नहीं होगा ना. तो
Absolutely.
दैट वाज.
और ये आज के दिन पे बहुत इसलिए मैसेज जो है in today's generation is so important. In India today, we are finding so much of communal ideological differences. And here we talk about Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Sikh, and we're fighting each other on the basis of religion. On my side, I can only say one thing: the troops that are standing there at the borders, they don't follow any religion except the religion of nationalism. And Bharat and India is a religion. And together we have been fighting this battle for the rest of the country. Like there's a dialogue: when you go home, tell them of us. That for your tomorrow, we gave our today. The fact of the matter is that the soldiers there in those peaks, in those heights, they are doing everything possible. You see the floods in Punjab, you see the floods in J&K. Who is on the street? The common people and the soldiers. A child falls into a borewell, it is the army that is called. A bridge falls and it has to be reconstructed, it is an army that is called. If anything happens in this country when everyone fails, it is the army that is called. And when you're calling the army, give the army its due. Well, I keep saying the army is due respect, and the army is not asking you for anything. We don't want
Right.
your money. We don't want your fame. We don't want anything. We just want respect for the forces that are standing there on the borders at minus 50 degrees and plus 48 degrees and serving the nation. लोग
Absolutely.
बोलते हैं taxpayers' money. It is not taxpayers' money. It is you being provided with safety and security to sleep in your beds peacefully while I refuse to sleep and I'm away from my family for a huge period of time. It is not a sacrifice. It is not a sacrifice. But it is my patriotism and my blood that will be shed for you. Understand that. And that's what people fail to understand.
Absolutely. I mean, I have always felt that whatever little we can do for you, we should always do, at least for the shaheeds and all. And I mean, however much respect we give you, it is always less. I mean,
Uh,
that's my feeling. That's my feeling.
yeah.
So, sir, moving on quickly, I'm sure you have been with the army during the Kargil War also, right? So,
Yeah, but
Kargil to Operation Sindoor. So, how do you see the difference in the Indian Army in terms of using technology, AI, drones, and all that, right? India has come a long way, I know that, but I would rather let the experts speak about that than myself commenting.
you see, you cannot compare Operation Vijay, that is Kargil, to Operation Sindoor. They're two different operations by itself. Operation Vijay was occupation of the ground that India held during the summer season and which was vacated by principle, mutually agreed and understood by both sides. Right? And that was occupied by the Pakistanis by claiming that they were occupied by elements that were fighting for Kashmiri freedom and not the Pakistani army, which was later proven to be false, that the Pakistani, and Musharraf himself said it, that under the garb of using them, they launched the army and they occupied these heights. But what did we do? We fought the entire battle in a piecemeal fashion. We did not cross the borders. We did not target anything except the occupied posts at the borders. We did not hit the logistics behind in the rear. We did not hit Pakistan's communication lines. We used Air Force with a lot of restrictions and we restrained our application of firepower to only that area in which the encroachment had taken place. So you see, there was no actual use of technology. That is why we lost aircrafts, we lost helicopters, and we lost men. More than 700 of our men became fatalities there. It is only because there were no drones, there was no recce, These mountains belong to us. The post belong to us. The troops that flew in to capture this flew in from different areas. They were not acclimatized adequately. They did not know the area adequately. They did not know every crest, every crevice, every hole in the ground adequately. And we forced them to go fight the battle by saying कि हम आर पार की लड़ाई नहीं लड़ेंगे. Just imagine, sitting on a mountain with a machine gun, and there is only one track that comes. Those mountains are scraggy and rocky. You can't come from anywhere else. If there's a small track, you have to come along that, maybe 2 meters here and 2 meters there. They mined that. And they kept their LMGs aimed at those tracks because whenever they heard a sound, they fired in the tracks and casualties started. आप सोचो, आप ऊपर बैठे हो, नीचे से कोई आ रहा है, कितना आसान है उसको ठोकने के लिए. So that's what happened in Kargil. There was absolutely no technology used. So there's nothing with technology in Kargil. It was brute force used
Yeah,
against a brute enemy.
old
There,
old
what
fashioned
played a
traditional
major role,
war. Yeah, old fashioned traditional war.
yes, and what played a major role there was the Air Force and the Indian artillery. And the valor of the Indian officers, the JSOs, and the soldiers is unmatched in Kargil. Nowhere in the world does an army march knowing very well that 75% of them are not going to come back alive. And in Kargil, there are those officers there, those JSOs there, those ORs there, JSOs in ranks there, went up those hills marching knowing very well that the next bullet is going to come at them. And yet, we won that war. So hats off in Kargil for Indian Army's training, motivation, brute force. On Kargil, the Air Force and the artillery and the infantry soldier has to be commended. The signalers who adequate communication and the engineers need to be commended. The army as a whole was a package that was launched into Kargil without major utilization of technology. Operational Sindoor is something else. Operational Sindoor is we knew where we were going. The first major factor in Operation Sindoor that we used was strategic deception. You see, Pahalgam happened, who did, what did, how it happened, we'll not get into that. But we needed to give a reply because whatever said and done, these terrorists are armed and trained by the adversary across the border, that is Pakistan. Whether these three terrorists in Pahalgam actually did under orders of the ISI, that is still ambiguous. But we will not go into that. But the fact is, you trained them, you equipped them, so you face the consequences. And I think the government was absolutely right in taking that decision. But they waited. They waited adequately for the right time, and they decided on the targeting in the right places, and they used minimum force so that they do not beat the enemy's threshold level. So you see, it was an intelligent maneuver that the government did. But the strategic deception is something that you should give credit for. What was the strategic deception? In the form of exercising the civilian population that your lights are going to go off, that warlike situation is going to be created as a practice. That message was spread everywhere, and even Pakistanis were told the same thing. And the same very night, we launched attacks all over the Pakistani border. This is the first time where we used aircrafts to hit the heart of Punjab. We hit Muridke and we hit Bahawalpur, which is 110 kilometers from the international boundary. So for the first time, we hit targets across the international boundary, only addressed to terrorist camps of the terrorist training center. And we were very, very specific. If the Chinese had not given the Pakistanis adequate information or warning, they would have been caught completely with their pants down. So I believe that the Chinese saved the Pakistanis, and otherwise the destruction would be far more massive. Technology used drones, satellite imagery, satellite real-time imagery. You use AVACs, that is your aircraft, which are fitted with radar systems that can gauge the enemy's air traffic all over the place, and you use dispersed air defense systems to prevent any kind of influx of enemy aircraft coming in, and you position your ships at sea in a manner to be a threatened being. You position your troops on ground in Rajasthan, in Punjab, in Haryana, and in JNK to also be the threatened being कि तुम करोगे तो threshold level हम ऊपर कर देंगे. When they gave a warning of a nuclear strike, they said हम लोग nukes. We said we've got bigger ones. So you see, we played the game very well, and we used technology. Where we lost out is that we lost the narrative.
Exactly,
This
exactly.
is my personal opinion. We lost the narrative. Why we lost the narrative is, first of all, you go and name a military operation, Operation Sindhu. I will not, because the government must have taken this decision, so I will not go against what principally against what the government does. But you see, Operation Sindoor would never be a military nomenclated name. Nomenclated military का नहीं है ये Bollywood है. It was for effect to please the masses in India that we are taking a revenge for the ladies who lost their husbands, which theoretically is absolutely given. It's a given. But if you look at it operationally, Operational Sindoor is not an operational name given to any operation, but we did it. Right? Now, the second thing is, for the first briefing of Operational Sindoor, you put three ladies there.
Two ladies.
Add up to these ladies, two ladies, three ladies, all three. Air Force, Army, and Navy. Three ladies there. But the fact of the matter, you put three ladies there and you put it for effect. You tell them that these are the ladies who are now taking revenge for the destruction or the killing of a husband. Again, it was being played to the gallery. It was not a military kind of a briefing. Because the military briefing would have been right from the DGMO, the DGNO, and the DG Air Ops. Those guys who gave the final briefing. They should have been there from day one. Thirdly is, when the narrative started, the three Rafales have fallen and one MiG is fallen. Who picked that up? It is not Pakistan who picked it up. Pakistan may throw it to its side. But the Indians started questioning the Indian army. The Indians started questioning the Indian Navy. The Indians started questioning the Indian Air Force. Pakistan didn't question us. We have 10 times the population of Pakistan, and we started questioning our own military, our own government, started claiming that all this was very fake, and they have fallen, and then the entire narrative was lost. But Pakistan was going, no, कि तीन रफाल गिरा दिए, एक मिग गिरा दिया, हमने उनके कराना एयरबेस पे मारा, न्यूक्लियर बेस पे, हमने नूर एयरफील्ड पे मारा, उनके एयरफील्ड तबाह कर दिए, बालाकोट, ये सॉरी नॉट बालाकोट, भावलपुर पे मारा, भूल के पे मारा. We destroyed them. We won the entire battle. We destroyed so many of their drones. Not even one single damage was done by any drone of theirs. Our S-400 systems, our anti-missile systems, our air defense systems were completely in place, and we did not let them do any damage. But nothing. We kept tom-tomming. Our media kept tom-tomming कि तीन रफाल के ऊपर. वो तीन रफाल के चक्कर में हम नैरेटिव खो गए. आज के दिन पे पाकिस्तान सेलिब्रेट ऑफ सिंदूर एज द ग्रेटेस्ट विक्ट्री. उनका जो जनरल है असीम मुनीर, उनका चीफ ऑफ आर्मी स्टाफ है, उसको उन्होंने फील्ड मार्शल बना दिया. एक ही फील्ड मार्शल था इस एरिया में, वो है सैम मानेकशॉ. दैट टू सेपरेटिंग पाकिस्तान इन टू हाफ्स इनटू इंडिपेंडेंट कंट्रीज.
फील्ड
एंड फॉर
मार्शल नहीं
दैट,
सर, उनको फील्ड मार्शल बोलो.
absolutely, and you see, and what they did, they Asim Munir, who is nobody, who lost the war, he was promoted to field marshal. उसके
तो
ऊपर
अपना
यूएस ने
प्रमोशन
क्या
तो खुद
किया?
ही कर दिया ना, वो तो उसके अंडर ही है सब कुछ, वो अपना प्रमोशन खुद ले लिया ना.
Because the Pakistani military runs the country, it is not the politics.
They have the
And then what?
military as a country.
And they had Trump, who subconsciously was almost helping them. $1 billion of loan. उसके ऊपर weapon systems coming in. उसके ऊपर the narrative that he stopped the war between India and Pakistan, and India stopped because he is a good friend of our prime minister. So everything worked in Pakistani's favor. And then he was invited to the White House for dinner. He clicked pictures with Trump, Asim Munir, and Shehbaz Sharif. So we lost the battle of narrative. Information warfare जो बोलते हैं हम लोग उसका हार गए. लड़ाई जीत गए, इंफॉर्मेशन वॉर हार गए. 1973 में यौम किपुर में भी एक लड़ाई हुई थी, इजराइल वर्सेस सीरिया एंड इजिप्ट. उसमें इजराइल सेलिब्रेट्स यौम किपुर एज वन ऑफ इट्स ग्रेटेस्ट विक्ट्री. Egypt, who is the enemy, he also celebrates Yom Kippur as his greatest victory. So you see, like ईरान एंड इसराइल का भी रिसेंटली लड़ाई हुआ. ईरान ने इसराइल के ऊपर भी ठोका, और अमेरिकन बेस कटार के अंदर जो था उसके ऊपर भी ठोका. ईरान इज सेलिब्रेटिंग इट एज अ विक्ट्री. इसराइल इज सेलिब्रेटिंग एज अ विक्ट्री. इसराइल ने बोला कि उनके न्यूक्लियर फैसिलिटी ठोक दी हमने, तो दोनों भी सेलिब्रेट कर रहे हैं. आजकल की लड़ाई में विक्ट्री इज सो एम्बिगियस. You don't know who is actually winning, who is losing. You have to get your narrative right. देखो कितना ठोकोगे, कितना डैमेज करोगे, आजकल के दिमाग, आजकल के जमाने में कोई मायना नहीं रखता. What is more important is who has won the narrative. बिकॉज फाइनली एंड स्टेट क्या भारत ने ऑफ सिंदूर में पाकिस्तान का टेररिज्म कैपेबिलिटी खत्म किया? नहीं किया। मुंह तोड़ जवाब दिया लेकिन खत्म किया? नहीं किया। क्या इसराइल ने ईरान के ऊपर न्यूक्लियर हमला करने के बाद न्यूक्लियर जितना उसकी फैसिलिटीज थी उसको खत्म किया? क्या उसके प्रोग्राम को खत्म किया? नहीं किया। क्या ईरान ने इसराइल को खत्म किया? क्या उनके मिलिट्री बेसिस को खत्म किया जहां से ये अटैक आए थे? नहीं किया। लेकिन हमने नैरेटिव को रन किया, इजरायलियों ने नैरेटिव रन किया कि वी हैव पुट बैक देयर एंटायर न्यूक्लियर प्रोग्राम बाय 50 इयर्स। सो दे हैव द डिजायर्ड एंड स्टेट जो उनका था वो अचीव कर लिया। उसी प्रकार से ईरान ने बोला कि इजराइल सोचता था हम उनकी तरफ पहुंच नहीं पाएंगे, उनका जो एयर डिफेंस सिस्टम को बचा लेगा, अभी भी हमने उनके सब जगह उनको ठोका और अमेरिकन बेस कटार में जो है उसको भी ठोका, तो हमने लड़ाई जीती। In the same manner, India and Pakistan, nobody is the winner here. Ultimately, it is narratives, and we lost the battle of narrative. I'm very, very
Ultimately, media
clear about it.
news got the actually became the winner because their news circulated and they might have actually made money out of it, right? So I look at it in that way, right? So and I know that for a fact, and I've heard it, and you will also know better that पाकिस्तानियों को तो ये भी बोला जाता है कि आज तक इंडिया से उन लोगों का जितना भी जंग हुआ है सब कुछ उन लोग ही जीता है, मतलब तो वो मतलब बच्चों बच्चों को यही सिखाया जाता है उन लोगों को, तो आप क्या बोलोगे अभी?
बिल्कुल।
Sir, next question is, if let's say Operation Sindoor 2 starts from today, tomorrow, right? And which I think will, maybe. So how do we learn from the mistakes of losing out on this narrative war? Should we should there be steps from the government side, like setting up a separate ministry or a committee who will control the narrative, or leave it to the military that you are fighting the
See,
war, you also fight the narrative?
see, Indians have realized completely, and even the government has realized that narrative building and narrative victory is the most important thing. Whether physically you do something or not, you have to build a narrative and win that narrative. That everybody has realized as a lesson from Operational Sindoor, and Indian Army is graceful enough to accept it that we could have done better. Right? Now, if Op Sindhu 2 takes place for any reason whatsoever, which is being done with Pakistani threatening India's security or India's space, so we will retaliate. So we have set an example. We are going to retaliate, and we're going to retaliate heavily this time. And this time there will be no Trump to stop this war because nobody stops the war when you're winning.
Absolutely.
You stop the war only because you first of all either you have achieved your end state, or you have caused adequate amount of damage to teach the other country a lesson, or you have caused so much of casualty to the other country is now crying for help. In option to nothing happened because we stopped the war thinking that we have achieved our aim, which we didn't. Right? So a winner never stops at war, but we did. Why we did what we did, that we can keep thrashing. Whether Trump actually stopped the war or not, what he claims to do, that also we can keep thrashing. But the fact is, we did. We stopped it. So that was the biggest mistake. A victor, a guy who's winning, cannot stop the war. You need to take it to its conclusion. At least 50% of the conclusion should have been achieved.
Right.
Okay, we hit the terrorist bases, but they raised the threshold. They hit a border town. They send their aircrafts. They send their drones. We dropped everything. You see, and in the age, today's age, defined by the Ukraine-Russia war and the usage of drones, what sides used indigenous drones substantially? But the Indian drones were so good, and hats off to the startup businesses that are doing drones right now. We have the best drones. We have the drones which carry weapon systems. They're called Predators, and I think we are going a big way and using AI to look at targets, identify targets, do a predictive analysis of targets, and then strike targets. We have AI to suggest what objective should be hit. We have AI to suggest within this objective what is the kind of damage an objective would require. We have AI to suggest key what time and in what framework this objective should be processed and hit. And we have got AI for post damage strike assessment. After the objective has been hit, what is the kind of damage that would have been caused, and after and also concluding on the threshold levels that the enemy would have. whether he's going to get more aggressive, whether he's going to stop the war, what are the conclusions that are going to be achieved. All that AI is giving us. And the biggest battle winning factor today is the um, the command and control system that we have, which is completely dependent on artificial intelligence, predictive analysis, and the biggest players on ground are the drones.
Okay. Sir, sooner or later, right? We all know. I mean, looking at all the analysis, videos, podcasts, news item, right? India is going to fight a bigger war.
Mhm.
2 fronts, 3 fronts, I don't know how many fronts. आपका वेस्टर्न फ्रंट हो गया, नॉर्दर्न फ्रंट हो गया, चाइना इधर, बांग्लादेश भी आज आजकल बहुत उछल कूद कर रहा है. तो आई डोंट नो हाउ टू कॉल ऑल दीज 2.5 front, 3 front, 3.5 front, I don't know. So do you think India, if such a war starts tomorrow, India is ready, or technologically at least, because technology is going to play a major factor in the future warfare, right? It's not going to be like traditional warfare. So how much time India would need to prepare and secure its borders for all these 3 fronts if they come together and start troubling India?
See, today's wars are not fought like this. Sudeep, what happens is, if China comes to war, the US will come with us or the Russian will come to us. Right? It is a matter of allies. Singularly, you might fight, you see, even Operational Sindoor. Let's face facts. India and Pakistan fought. The world came together, the US came together to say stop the war. Well, the Russians came together to stop it. वो अपनी लड़ाई लड़ रहे हैं यूक्रेन के साथ, बट यहाँ पे आके बोला कि यार रोको. Even Chinese said stop the war. We do not want Southeast Asia to be damaged in such a condition. But the fact is, today's war is not fought by single. We're never going to fight a two-front war. We're never going to fight a three-front war. It might start as a two-front war, but a two-front war will go on to an escalation, if it is escalated, to a dimension where it will be multiple countries fighting with multiple people. It is a joint war. Today, we have our Prime Minister Modi hobnobbing with Xi Jinping, Putin, and they are hobnobbing with Pakistan also. They are hobnobbing with our man from North Korea also. So the fact of the matter is the configuration of the world and the dynamics of the world are so confusing and complex now. As to जब आप लड़ाई लड़ने जाओगे कौन आपका साथ देगा ये हमको नहीं पता. हम लोग यूएस कर रहे थे, यूएस ने टैरिफ कर दिया, हमने पगडंडी बदल दी, हमने
Right.
जाके फिर चाइना को पकड़ लिया. और जो चाइना हम लोग बोलते हैं टिकटॉक बैन करो, ये बैन करो, वो बैन करो, जाकर उसे हाथ मिला दें. ठीक है, जबकि मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि एनीबडी कैन बी ट्रस्टेड बट द चाइनीज कैन बी ट्रस्टेड. Why they can't be trusted? Because we've never trusted them. It is a false line that we have in our border system, that we cannot trust the Pakistanis, we cannot trust the Chinese, and now we can't trust the Bangladeshis. Why we can't trust them is because you see, China is looking at India as an economic competitor and not as a military competitor. Because in military they're far ahead of us. In technology they're at least 50 years ahead of us. The fact is that they have the money to pump it into research and development. We, for us, economics lies in our industry and not in our military. Our military might is a defensive military might kept only for the defense of this nation. It is not for preemption or attack. So we are a defensive country in our entire ideology of having this military to protect our own assets and our nation. Now the Chinese have interest in Taiwan. They took over Tibet. Slowly, you see they're building this entire corridor in Pakistan, and they'll make Pakistan so debt-ridden that they will take over Pakistan. They've made inroads into Bangladesh, inroads into Myanmar. They have come to Sri Lanka. They're getting into Seychelles. So the fact is that China is surrounded us everywhere. And militarily, how strong we are in comparison to Chinese? Man to man contact battle में हम उनकी धज्जियां उड़ा देंगे. Man to man contact battle में. But technologically, they're far superior to us. The total force numbers you take, tank versus tank, they have much more than us. Aircraft versus aircraft, they have much more than us. The only place where we right now are stronger to them is the Indian Navy. But in the Indian Navy also, China has caught on to the pulse of the Indian Navy, and what threatens the Indian Navy the most are submarines. So they have invested in submarines and deep sea warfare, which we don't have. We have submarines. We have one nuclear submarine. We're trying to reach out the second one. But our submarine force is not as good as the Chinese. Our submarine detection for anti-submarine elements that we have are not as strong. So the fact is China is invested into our vulnerabilities. Should we have a fight with China? No way. China can be taken care of diplomatically. Small skirmishes and attacks here will keep happening. Why? Because China wants to keep these borders burning. If it keeps its borders burning, he can sell weapon systems. He can generate weapon systems. Right? And he has to keep Pakistan on the boil against India. If he doesn't keep Pakistan on the boil against India, the Indian military will generate so much of capability that it will start taking on the Chinese. तो पाकिस्तान को उबालते रहो, उनके ऊपर वेपन पंप करते रहो, वो खरीदते रहेंगे, उनका डेट बढ़ते रहेगा. He is killing two birds with one stone. He is putting Pakistan into debt, and what he is doing with India, he is keeping India occupied with this nautanki that Pakistan is doing. Meanwhile, he does a small little border skirmish here, a small little border skirmish there, ensures deployment of Indian troops. आप कहीं भी बॉर्डर पे जाओगे, इंडियन ट्रूप सब जगह डिप्लॉयड है, ऑन ग्राउंड बैठे हुए हैं, सर्दी में, गर्मी में, बारिश में, सब बैठे हुए हैं. कोई चाइनीज नहीं मिलेगा. चाइनीज पीछे बैठे हुए हैं, छोटे छोटे स्टेशन बना रखे हैं, हॉलिडे स्टेशन, उसको बिलेटिंग स्टेशन बोलते हैं. वहां बैठ के आराम कर रहा है. उसने अपने पगडंडिया खोल के टूरिज्म करा रहा है. जब हम पूरा डिप्लॉयड है, सी द अमाउंट ऑफ मनी वी आर स्पेंडिंग to maintain one person in the field in that weather, transportation cost, oxygen cost, health cost, food cost, water cost, kerosene cost is huge. And he's forced us to deploy. तो हम लोग सब जगह डिप्लॉयड है because we don't want to lose any more ground. So China has killed two birds with one stone. इंडिया को भी ऑक्यूपाइड रख दिया उसने, पाकिस्तान को भी उत्साह के रख दिया, उनका डेट बढ़ते रहेगा, हम लोग डिप्लॉय होते रहेंगे. What is happening is it is costing us money. He's made the cost of even even a peace. He's made the cost of peace costly to us. Forget cost of war. Cost of war तो बढ़ाएगा ही costly. He's made cost of peace also very too costly for us to sustain. But we are doing it. We have no other option.
Okay, sir. Moving on. Last couple of questions for you. One is there is a talk about autonomous weapons, and AI is coming big into it, right? Do you see that? I mean, the valor, the bravery of Indian army is unmatched. Anywhere in the world you go, our army is like superior than any other hand-to-hand combat, valor, everything compared, right? But with this autonomous systems coming in, I'm sure the autonomous systems will have some degree of I think bravery built into them, but it will not be able to match that Indian army's stature, right? So, do you think this will be a move that we should also be taking, because every other country in the world sooner or after is going to go after that, because they want to minimize the human casualty and all those things, right? So, but we also want to do that. Of course, we value our lives, our army people's life, everything. But is this the right direction that the world should go, or we should stay away from these kinds of things, because this can be a little bit dangerous also. I don't know if autonomous weapons fire something wrong, some AI does something crazy, lot of things can go wrong, right?
See, first thing you have to understand is that two dimension to what you're saying. Firstly, Indian Army and its capability where ground forces are concerned in the form of contact battles. We are very strong. We live on a credo or the Naam Namak or Nishan. For us, it is not the country that we are fighting for, but we are fighting for my comrade who is next to me. I'm fighting for the badge I wear, that is my regiment, and I'm fighting for the name of the Indian Army. Within that, the country comes first. But the fact is, the first thing that I'm fighting is for survival, for my buddy who's next to me, and for the regiment whose badge I wear. Naam, Namak, or Nishan. Fine, I'm fighting for this. Why the call? And we have a voluntary army. Nobody's forced us to join the army. We join on our own. We train and we join on our own. But in foreign armies, you'll find they have time-based capabilities and reservists. Like you take the UK army or the US army, they have only a 20 to 25% of the forces which are permanent. Rest are all who come for a short duration of time, train with the army, do their job, and then they go out, like the US army. Like the Marine Corps is permanent, but the others are not. But the fact of the matter is that The Indian Army is a naam namak on nishan. Now, autonomous weapon system. What do you mean by autonomous weapon system? First, that is to be defined. Autonomous weapon systems are those weapon systems that do not have physical human intervention in the form of being part of that system that goes into an attack or into combat. You can be in the background, like a drone is an autonomous weapon system. He flies off, you're controlling it with a stick, you're looking at the entire thing on a screen, you're choosing the target, you're assessing it, you're guiding it, you're striking it. That is autonomous. Like you have an autonomous tank. You have a tank, there's no man in it, you put a guy, there's nothing, it's all pre designed, and there you have given it the commands, and it takes voice command depending upon the visibility that is being factored in from the autonomous weapon systems. After the gun, you have autonomous guns which go, get deployed, fire, move. Then you have infantry, like they have the robotic dogs now for attack, or infantry robo soldiers, which the Chinese are already supposed to be having. Those robotic soldiers carry weapon systems. They are pre-designated, pre-manned, pre-fed, everything. They go into war. उसका लाइफ साइकिल देखो, हर चीज का लाइफ साइकिल होता है. अगर आप इन्फेंट्री रोबो को आगे भेज रहे हो, उसका लाइफ साइकिल है कि वो 2 3 4 घंटे सरवाइव कर पाए. It is not about whether it can be used or not. Yes, if India has to use it, it has to be used. Because do you want a body bag of a human being coming back? उनको कोई बंदा चाहिए जो मर के वापस आएगा? नहीं ना. उसका पूरा फैमिली उसका वेट कर रहा है. If somebody else who's just costing us money is going to get destroyed, that's far okay with us. Therefore, robotics is the word ahead. Autonomous weapon system is the way ahead. But you and me need to understand, for autonomous weapon system, you need to have the money. Where is the money going to come from? And to sustain those autonomous weapon systems, when you know the life cycle is going to be 3 to 4 hours when battle has been joined, can you actually have that kind of money? Can you invest that kind of money into this autonomous system? Because it is not only that robo, no, it is the maintenance systems, it is the command and control systems, it is the communication systems, it is the GCS, the ground command stations, all these things. And where is the money going to come from? India can't afford it right now. The Chinese may be able to afford it, but only in parts and parcels. To have an entire army of robotics? No way. It is too cost prohibitive. It cannot happen. To have an entire army of unmanned tanks cannot happen. हाँ तुम्हारे पास 15 20 30 40 50 100 300 हो सकता है, उससे ज्यादा तो नहीं हो सकता. देखो, एक चीज याद रखो, तुम जो भी बनाओगे, you make anything. You made a computer, somebody made a virus. Well, you make a robotic soldier, somebody will make an anti-robotic soldier to dismember him. And today, you don't need weapon systems like robots or unmanned vehicles or autonomous weapon systems. All you need is a laptop, and you need to be a good hacker. You can destroy systems.
Yes.
If you invest in technology that is redundant, which is untraceable, which is unattributable, and at the same time destructive. So today, when we talk about warfare, a full stream warfare, conventional warfare जो मैन टू मैन लड़ाई तो लास्ट, सबसे पहले आपका जो एयर ट्रांसपोर्ट सिस्टम को वो निगेट करेंगे, फिर रेलवे ट्रांसपोर्टेशन सिस्टम को निगेट करेंगे, फिर तुम्हारा जो जिसका सिस्टम है जिसमें ज्यादा क्राउड इकट्ठे होते हैं, जैसे तुम्हारे ट्रैफिक लाइट्स है, उसके ऊपर कब कंप्लीट फर्ज कर दो. देखो गुड़गांव में एक बारिश हुई, 8 8 घंटे के लिए लोग फंस गए. आप सोचो, ट्रैफिक सिग्नल आर द मोस्ट इजी टू मैनिपुलेट. I have to manipulate traffic signals in metro stations, cause huge traffic jams. खत्म कहानी. आधी बैटल तो तुम वही जीत गए हो. The fact is that today you have all these autonomous systems that can be researched and brought into play, but they're going to be cost prohibitive. Should India go for it? Yes, India should go for it because at times you might need it to put them into your most vulnerable areas so that destruction of human capability is reduced. For that, you need to be balanced. You need to have a balanced view. You might have a force tomorrow called the robotic force, used in only areas where heavy destruction is possible and where you want to save your own life. Yes, please do so. But don't go all out. सोच समझ के थोड़ा 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 we'll have to do.
Okay. So, a very enriching discussion, sir. One last question for the day. Um, I personally, at least, look up to the army for uh, one most important thing in my life, which is the leadership value that you guys bring in. I mean, wonderful leaders. I mean, I watch podcasts not only of the Indian Army but U.S. Army and all those people, and I follow one guy by the name of Simon Sinek. I don't know if you have watched his podcasts and all that. He always talks about the army, right? How leadership should be is defined for me by the army. So I want to end this podcast um, by hearing from you one particular leadership story, either from your life or from your seniors that you have looked up to, that this is what is called leadership, that I want to personally take back with me and learn from it, if you can, sir.
See, leadership in the army. Every army officer that is inducted into the Indian Army as an officer has leadership qualities. That's why he's there. Because the Indian Army leads from the front. The officer cadre leads from the front. The Indian Army is the only army where the officer has to go into the attack first, followed by his jawan. Because the jawans are constantly watching what the officer is doing and thereby following him. So that is why you see in battle, even in Kargil or otherwise, young officers with the largest amount of casualty because they led the battle. They were leaders into battle. Fine. So nobody can beat that and take that away from the Indian Army. We have the strongest leaders in the Indian Army. But the fact of the matter is, what are the lessons that we learn? See, you can be a leader, but a leader who does not make decisions is the worst leader ever. You need to make decisions, whether it's right or wrong, doesn't matter. But at times, even the wrong decisions might work for you. But make a decision. The ambiguity in decision making is what affects Indian leadership. There are a lot of people who play safe, and the safety guides them to a higher rank. But the consistency factor is missing. To be a leader, you need to be diligent, you need to be consistent, and you need to be focused. And you need to take risks. If you do not have a risk taking ability and you constantly keep thinking about only being safe, then you cannot be a military leader. Cannot be a military. I'm not going to talk about the army in leadership because the army has got thousands of leaders who are much better than me. I'm one of the lowest in the form of in the rung of leadership in the Indian Army because we have got people like Sam Maharaj. In my unit, I've got officers who are better leaders, seniors to me who trained me and made me what I am today. I can name them: General Langar, General Bakshi, Colonel Chabla, maybe General Mangar, General Vipul. I mean, the guys with leadership values are indoctrinated into them, indoctrinated into them. They're such good leaders. But you see, leadership in the army, like when I was into Manipur. My last posting was Manipur before I quit the army. In Manipur, on the 3rd of May 2023, Manipur burst into flames. For whatever reasons. I was the officiating general officer commanding them because my GOC, a very good man, but he was not well, so खुदा ना कभी होता ना luck. During that time only the poor man went to Calcutta to get treated. And I was there and I took a decision at that time because I started getting frantic calls from people कि हमें बचा लो हम मरने वाले हैं यहाँ पे लोग इकट्ठा हो गए हैं ये सब कुछ जला रहे हैं सबको मार रहे हैं ladies were being mishandled and molested please save us. As an officiating general officer commanding I could have easily said only when the government of state government of Manipur requisitions me as per law as per procedure I will send my troops, but we didn't wait for orders. These were my people. These were my people whom I was interacting with every day. Both sides, the Maitai and the Kuki community, were good friends, and they were beautiful, wonderful people. Because of rumor mongering, things were happening wrong. I called my commanding officers and I told them, take all your vehicles and your men and get into these places that were designed and rescue as many people as possible. That was a leadership decision that I took, which I didn't even know whether it would stand by me or not. My troops went, rescued more than 10,000 people over 6 days, and more than 3,500 people were brought into the cantonment and fed, clothed, and they're witnesses to what we have done. And we saved so many people. We saved at least 36 villages from being burned, and all because of rumors. But you see, That leadership decision helped those 10,000 people, helped those 3,500 people. Till today, I keep getting calls and thank you messages from these people. My troops who were there, because we were feeding all these people from the troop rations. The food was coming from the troop ration. Water was coming from the troop ration. I told the दरबार and I told the troops कि हमारा राशन हम लोग इनको दे रहे हैं आपको चिंता तो नहीं है. There was one guy who stood up and said, if we don't eat, we'll not get. If we don't eat, we're not going to reduce weight or become thin. Doesn't matter. These are our people. We'll feed them. And that is the kind of leadership the Indian Army has. You don't have to wait for orders. Sometimes you need to do things that are supposed to be done because you are the first protector of this country and the last bastion of hope. So beyond religion, beyond caste, beyond color, Indian Army stands strong. And leadership in Indian Army, let me tell you one thing, is something that you can never run out of. There are stories and stories that can be told about how people have seen the floods in Ladakh, see the floods in J&K, see the floods in Punjab. My postmates who are generals now are there day and night without sleep, without eating anything. And sorry, generals don't need to go, but they are there. And they're doing so well. They're doing so well. And भाई देखो यार, जहां भी इंडिया कहीं फंसता है सिर्फ फौज आती है. ठीक है, कोई बाकी कोई माइका लाल नहीं आता. ठीक है, सब जगह सिर्फ फौज आती है. तुम कुछ भी देख लो, कहीं भी देख लो. योर लास्ट bastion of hope is the Indian Army, and they never say no. They never say no. They are there. केरला से लेके J&K तक and uh, मणिपुर से लेके राजस्थान तक. I think there is nobody as valiant, as brave, as um, conscious of his nationalism like an Indian Army officer and an Indian Army soldier. So I am very proud to be one. I have spent 33 years in the army and not one day have I regretted it. Not one day.
And we are all very, very proud of you, sir, and all the
Well,
Indian Army personnel. So that
never
story
thought that
reminded
I'd
me of.
be proud of the Indian Army.
Yes, absolutely, sir. No question about it. Very proud. So that story you told about Manipur reminded me of something, a quote about leadership. Leadership's basic thing that I learned very early in the age is taking care of the people you are in charge of. That is the basic core principle of leadership. So if you ask me. So sir, that's about it for today. It was a wonderful, wonderful enriching session. I learned so many things, and hopefully our viewers will also learn so many things. Maybe if time and opportunity gives us another chance, we'll have to do a part two. We will see. Thank you once again. It's been an absolute honor, pleasure, and I have no words after this to say to you and the Indian Army. Last thing I can do for you is that I salute the Indian Army and people like you who keep us safe. Thank you, sir.
My last word to everybody who is watching this is be proud of your country. Don't let another Op Sindhu narrative be lost. Support your government, support your army, trust them because they know what they're doing and stand by the principles of citizenship of this great nation. Nothing can go wrong. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.